Hi, I'm Jeff Walters, and welcome to The Minutes. And thanks for listening today. It's great to have you along on The Minutes this week. This is a City of Thunder Bay podcast. The Minutes takes a look at what happened at Thunder Bay City Council this past week. But this week we have a special edition of the show, looking at how the City of Thunder Bay operates. We have a couple of feature interviews with city management and administration, explaining how city services run all year long. You can find the Minutes wherever you get your podcasts, including our YouTube channel and our website, thunderbay.ca/the minutes. If you want to keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening at City Hall, just hit that subscribe button. Every year, we hear about the need to spend a little more to properly fund our city's infrastructure. Okay, maybe it's actually a lot more, but the city is putting together what's called an asset management plan to help determine exactly how much and where tax dollars should be spent when it comes to city assets. Amy Coomes is the city's program lead for asset management. Amy, thanks for coming into the Minute Studio today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, glad you could make it in. So let's start with the very basics here. We hear about the infrastructure deficit all the time. What exactly is the infrastructure deficit?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And it's actually our annual infrastructure deficit. So when we take a look at our annual budget every year, we take a look at how much we're spending on renewal of our infrastructure, the existing infrastructure that we already have. And then we also take a look at what is the required sustainable amount of money that we should be spending on our infrastructure every year to maintain it. And that gap between what we're actually spending every single year and what we should be spending or putting aside for future spending is our annual infrastructure deficit. So,
and do you know how big it is right now?
Right now, in our last plan, so our phase 2 asset management plan, it was $31.9 million annually.
Annually. And I'm assuming it's hard to close that gap.
It is very hard to close that gap, and asset management is a long-term approach to closing that gap. So taking a look at the entire life cycle of an asset and what are the activities that we can do throughout the life of an asset in order to reduce the cost over the entire life of the asset. So if you take a car, for example, if you were to buy a car and not do any maintenance to it at all whatsoever, that car is probably not going to last you very long, and you're going to spend more because you're going to be replacing it quicker. Right, so we're going to take a look at the entire life of the asset and what maintenance and rehabilitations can we do in order to extend the life of that asset as long as we can, and that would overall reduce the cost of that asset.
So the asset management plan and the infrastructure deficit, certainly not the same thing, though.
No. So the asset management plan takes a look at all of our assets across the board. What is the age? What's the condition? We're taking a look at, the life cycle activities that we can do for each and every asset because, it ranges from roads to water infrastructure to parks and playgrounds to recreation facilities and buildings that are required to run services like fire and EMS and all of the services that the city delivers. So we've got tons of different types of assets. So we need to take a look at all of those different assets, how they're managed, how we can extend the life of all of those assets, and come up with a plan to maximize our spending on those assets to extend the life and reduce our overall deficit. So the deficit is a part of the asset management plan, but it's not the entire asset management plan. So we need to really take a look at our planning and how we improve over the years. So we're really going to take a look at the next 10 years, the next 20 years, and then over the life of all of our assets. A lot of our assets can last 50 years or 100 years. So we need to think long term when we're talking about certain assets.
So since the asset management plan and the infrastructure deficit are different, but they're definitely incorporated, though, mm-hmm. What are the other things about the asset management plan that people probably don't think about? Because I think they always think infrastructure deficit, right?
Absolutely.
Like they think, we need to repair things.
Right. So levels of service is definitely something that we've been looking at over the last couple of years. So performance measures of our assets. How do citizens want our assets to perform? What is the satisfaction of the services that the citizens are receiving. So taking a look at our levels of service has been a really important piece of the asset management plan. So determining, are we going to be maintaining this amount of roads or this quality of roads over the next 10 years, or if we are going to improve upon our current condition, what level of service would citizens expect to see, and how much is that going to cost us over the next 10, 20 years, looking ahead and planning for that to, over time, increase that condition index or the quality that the citizens are receiving.
What are some of the biggest assets that we have in the city? Because I immediately just think of things like buildings and roads. Like, I think those are maybe just the obvious ones.
Yeah. So if you think about all those buildings and the roads, you need to also think about the things that you can't necessarily see that are underneath those buildings and roads, like the water and the wastewater. So very important things that a lot of people don't necessarily think about. How does the water get to you? How does the water get away from you to the water treatment plant? And then how is it treated and put back into Lake Superior, right? So there's a water, wastewater, stormwater infrastructure that makes up a lot of our infrastructure amount. And then things like sidewalks and playgrounds and then recreational facilities and things like that. So we've got a ton of major infrastructure pieces, but then there's also all of the vehicles that are required to deliver services. So we've got fire trucks, we've got ambulances, we've got garbage trucks, but we also have, regular machinery that's, helping to rip up the road when repairs are needed, or, vacuum trucks that, help suck out water and things like that.
Sure.
That help to maintain our services, but we don't necessarily think about them all the time.
Yeah, or even small things, I guess you could call them, like parks and swing sets and that sort of stuff, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So we've got all of the playgrounds. If you think about all of the machinery and equipment that's required to mow or plow everything that you're on, if that's a road or a sidewalk or a park, a playground, those sorts of things.
When it comes to the asset management plan, I know it's a really big document. You've got just a piece of it, I think, in front of you there. But there's been kind of changes from the province coming saying that, hey, you have to do certain pieces of it by certain times.
Absolutely.
So where are we right now, and what do you have to do into the future as well?
Yeah, right now, so we've just finished phase 2 of the asset management plan, which is inventorying all of our assets across the entire corporation. So making sure we have it somewhere tracked. We've got the condition, we know the age, we know how much it's going to cost to replace it, and we've got life cycle activities associated with those. And our next step is our phase 3, so taking a look at risk assessments of all of our assets and how are we going to fund those assets and maintain the current level of service. And then looking into the future, 10 years into the future, where do we want our target level of service to be? And then how can we sustainably fund that? And if we can't sustainably fund that, what are the risks associated with that? And what are the trade-offs? So we need to really come up with a plan. If there is a risk associated with not funding a life cycle activity, what are we going to do to mitigate that risk in order to, continue to deliver services to our citizens, but minimize risk?
And I guess, and that has to be done for everything that the city owns?
Absolutely.
Every asset.
Yeah.
Wow. So how long does that take?
Yeah. So asset management doesn't happen overnight, and it isn't. Once we meet this regulation, we have a plan. It doesn't mean asset management is done, right? So asset management, that's why it's called a program. It's a continuous improvement program. The more data we have about our assets, the more informed we can be, and the better decisions we can make. So we're really taking a look at all of the systems that are currently in place and processes, and taking a deep dive into that and how we can become more efficient. What kind of processes can we implement or changes can we do with our technology in order to better manage our assets? So that's a major project that's happening, and it will be, continuously improved upon over the next 10 years.
Do you have any examples of maybe how we've already used asset management to, determine what our priorities are, or determine, things that we're going to buy or fix or anything like that?
Absolutely. So when we're doing our annual budget, if you take a look at the certain things that are being proposed proposed. You can look at the bundling that's happening with roads and water and wastewater and stormwater, and we tend to use asset management to make those decisions. So sometimes a road is ready to be rehabilitated, but we know that the water and the wastewater needs to be done sometime, in the next 5 years. So we're going to actually push that road to wait until the water and wastewater, and we can afford to do all of it at the same time, so that we're not ripping up the road 3 different times to replace the water, the wastewater, the stormwater, and the road all at once. So we're doing everything all at once. Sometimes a road will require, a minor rehab, and then we can just mill and pave it and do that, and that'll extend the life of the road until that water and wastewater needs to be done, and then we'll rip it all up and do it that way.
So yeah, I think in the budget this year that was called like Public Works or something. It had a new name to it, right?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. So you've kind of answered this, but I'm looking for a bit more specifics here, maybe. So how does asset management and the plan set us up for the future?
Yeah, so asset management, with looking at our data and making more informed decisions, we can plan out our future of our budget and how we're going to make best use of our budget. So when we're looking at the risk, we can make a prioritization plan and make sure that our highest risk infrastructure assets are dealt with first, or that we're saving in order to deal with those that are going to cause a major impact to our budget over the long term. So we're really looking at how to make the best informed decision using data. So it's not just what is the biggest citizen need at the time, but also looking at all of the data across the board. So what do the citizens want? What is the risk? What is the risk of not investing in that certain asset?
And since we know this now, what are kind of the places that we excel at in Thunder Bay, and what are the assets that maybe need a little bit more help?
I think all of our assets need a little bit of help. Water and wastewater are fully funded. We do have financial plans that manage water and wastewater, and we have been really good at managing those particular assets because they've been rate-based and specifically geared towards those because they were regulated by regulations.
Right.
And then so other assets that have kind of felt by the waysides, certain facilities, parks, certain maybe sidewalks, other things that we need to focus on can come to the forefront through risk assessments.
And how hard is it to determine maybe the scale or the condition of certain things, right? Like I'm thinking of like the condition of a park, for example. Mm-hmm. Hard to say like, this park's in really good shape or bad shape, or like how do you do that?
Yeah, so we have to break it down into its components and really grade each of the components separately. So we would take a look at like the parking lot, the asphalt and the curbing. Then we would take a look at the playground and determine each of the different components that make up that playground. What condition are those in? And then we would look at the natural infrastructure that's in that area. Is there natural infrastructure in that area? Does it require it?
And what would natural infrastructure be?
Yeah, so natural infrastructure, that's a great question. So it's anything natural, essentially. So we're thinking about our trees, any of the wetland type infrastructure that would help us with stormwater. So we've got a lot of low impact developments across the city. So that is infrastructure, green infrastructure, so plants and rocks and sand that help slow down stormwater before it enters our stormwater system. So those make up our natural infrastructure.
Really? So there's a value. Well, like I know that trees have value, but you're actually also including even trees in this.
Absolutely, yes. Trees need to be maintained throughout the city. Otherwise, they do start to pose a risk, right? So you can't just plant a tree and then leave it and it'll be fine for its entirety of its life. There's pruning requirements. There's watering requirements in the first couple of years of its life. And then you need to continuously monitor that for risks of branches falling, trees dying, it being infested with, different insects and things like that.
Is there something, now this might not be surprising to you because you're writing the plan,
yeah.
But do you think there's anything in there that people will go, oh, that's an asset? Like I've never thought of it that way. Because like when you said trees, I just went, oh, I've never thought of trees or those, development areas as being an asset to us.
Right. So I'm not sure what people might be surprised by, but definitely natural infrastructure. That's been the biggest one where people have been surprised that it's considered an asset, but the benefits of having those within our city are astronomical. So you can imagine a city without any trees and without any wetlands that would help, manage that water. We would be in a lot of trouble.
Earlier this year, there was a bit of a focus on emergency services. I know earlier this year there was, and even late in 2024, talk about fire and EMS. So I guess why is there a bit of a focus on emergency services at this point?
So we've actually been doing each of our services, and it just happened to be emergency service time to take a look at those services and ask our citizens about those services. So we are asking citizens about every service across the entire corporation. And hopefully we get some good community feedback.
And are emergency services any different than other city operations? I'm just thinking they seem to get a bit more limelight sometimes.
Absolutely. Well, when you're having your worst day ever,
right,
those are the services that come to help you. So with regards to, how they're managed, fire is managed pretty similarly to, most other departments. However, EMS is not managed similarly to all of our services. We have two different service delivery models for EMS because we also manage all of the assets within the district for EMS services. So those ones are a little bit different, and the funding model for EMS services is a little bit different because we are funded through the province quite heavily for those as well.
Okay, fair enough. Speaking of, we were talking about surveys a moment ago. You've put out a number of surveys over the past little while. Why do you keep putting them out?
Yeah, well, we want to gather as much information from the citizens about the services that they're receiving. So in order to determine, where we want to be in the future, we need to know, what do citizens think about where we are right now? Are they happy with the services that are being delivered? What do they want to see in the future? What improvements can we make to our services, or what changes can we make in order to meet the needs of the citizens?
And do you actually get a fair amount of feedback?
Yes, we've been getting quite a bit of feedback, and it's great to see, some of the ideas that are coming through the surveys as well.
And how do they help you shape the plan? Because that's what you're trying to do with this information, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, so it depends on the question, but definitely the satisfaction level of citizens can help us shape, do we need to maintain this? Do we need to improve our services? Are they okay to, let it ride for a little while? How can we do that? But when we're looking at, say, fire, for example, one of the questions is around the amount of minutes that it takes for a fire truck to get to your house from the time of alarm. And, that the citizens' expectations can help us, determine where our fire stations are, kind of play into the other master plans that are across the city for those services. So fire can look at, are citizens happy with that? Or do we need to up our services? Maybe we need another fire truck. Maybe we need to, think about where our services are coming from.
When it comes to the plan itself, so I guess where are we heading in the future? Does this mean that with the plan we're going to fully fund replacement for everything, or do we have some decisions to make as a city?
Absolutely, we have decisions to make. So the asset management plan is all about providing information in order to make informed decisions. So we're not assuming any decisions are already made into the future. We're providing that information so that council can make, the best informed decisions based on all of the information that we're able to provide.
And I guess what sorts of information, as I said, do you provide? We've kind of skimmed over this. So I know there's obviously a financial piece, but what else do we tell them?
Yeah, so we're looking at the financial piece. We're looking at the level of service, so performance measures, citizen satisfaction. We're looking at, age, longevity, how much useful life we should be getting out of an asset, how much life we are getting out of an asset, the cost, and the condition, and then the risk. The risk is a big component that we're going to be focusing on into the future here, because there might be a probability of failure, but we need to look at the consequence of an asset failing. So if the consequence is really high and the asset might still be in fair condition, we need to, consider that investing in that asset sooner than later, because as soon as it falls into a poor condition, then we're in trouble.
Right, and I guess that's very, it really is dependent on what it is, right? Because you need a fire truck to work every time, but maybe if the backhoe breaks down, it's not as big of a deal. You might have another one or what have you, right?
Yeah, so we need to think about, what service is that asset providing, what is the consequence of it failing, and what is our priority for replacement.
Do you get excited over this kind of stuff?
I do. I do. So I always say that, yes, there is a regulation that makes us, produce these things, but I really get excited, especially around the technology and the improvements that are happening and things that we can now do, looking at GIS and how we can plan maintenance for certain things. I get excited about it.
That's okay. You don't enjoy your job, right? Yeah. Amy, anything else you want to add before I let you go today?
Just for citizens to keep an eye on our Asset Management Get Involved website, because we do have citizen engagement on that website. We have some really good videos about asset management on that website and some infographics. So keep going to that website as it changes over the years, and keep up to date with where we're going with this. Yeah.
And that's thunderbay.ca/get involved. Yeah, and look for the asset management button, I guess, somewhere on that page. Yes. Amy, appreciate you coming in today. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Jeff.
Amy Coomes, she is the city's program lead for asset management, and she joined me today in the Minutes studio. And a big thanks for listening to the Minutes this week. Of course, if you want more information about City Council, agendas, or minutes, just visit thunderbay.ca/council. If you want to listen to past episodes or maybe provide some feedback, visit thunderbay.ca/theminutes. You can also find the Minutes wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, you can find us on YouTube and on our website as well. That's thunderbay.ca/theminutes. If you want to keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening at City Hall, just hit that subscribe button. I'm Jeff Walters. Thanks for watching this week. We'll chat again next week. Make it a great day.